When most people think of Princess Leia, they tend to think of her in three different outfits. Her original A New Hope outfit, her dress from Bespin, and the outfit from Hoth when she led the evacuation. I mean, of course, there's also this awesome version of Leia, despite the fact that Disney pretends it doesn't exist, but that's a YouTube video for another time. Now, Hoth Leia, one of the more popular versions, has been released a few times in the modern line. In fact, technically, she was originally going to be part of the Total Galaxy line before that line got canceled, and the figure that was planned for that was shuffled off into a single release. So technically this would have been it.
You are technically correct. The best kind of correct.
And we also got Hoth Leias in different scales, too, in the beginning of the line. In fact, Hoth Leia remained a very popular character, getting redone quite a few times in the modern line with various levels of articulation and accessories. But there is another Leia, of course, from Empire Strikes Back, and that's the version where she wears the dress that's, I assume, given to her by Lando? Kind of creepy. And she walks around Cloud City with it. While she doesn't do much action in this version, it is a version of Leia that has remained very popular with the public and makes a great toy. And a big reason for that is because, well, this version of Leia was one of the 92 carded figures that Kenner released back in the day. And so there's a lot of memory attached to this, and in fact, this was one of the only Leias I think I had as a child. So we did get modern versions of Bespin Dress Leia, starting off with that Princess Leia Collection 2-pack we covered a little while ago, where figures got soft goods, but this was actually a new version of Leia. And what I think is the best version was the original Trilogy collection, where no soft goods were used. I don't really like soft goods on 3 3/4, what can I say? And I thought this figure nailed it. The upgrade for the vintage collection of this version went back to soft goods, and again, not my thing, but at least we got more articulation with this version. All right, so while you could have a lot of fun recreating the dinner scene where Han shoots, that's about all the action this version sees, the more action-oriented version of Leia from Cloud City is when she's in this outfit, which is commonly called Bespin Escape. At least that's what it was called in the very first figure of it, in this epic line where you had non-articulated version of Leia on a base you could turn around in the package, because kids love keeping their figures in package. So while we got that non-removable 8-inch figure in the Power of the Force 2 era, we never got a 3 3/4 figure until Power of the Jedi, when suddenly Bespin Escape Leia jumped out at all of us, and with even her 2 guns? Yeah, she came with 2 guns. Not sure why. Now, Bespin Escape Leia and Hoth Leia are very much related and easy to do. It's sort of like once you have one, doing the other one is pretty simple, and this fell very well in the Power of the Jedi strategy, which was to continue to release main characters much as the final waves of Power of the Force 2. So, with Hoth Leia already done, the idea of doing a sort of quick-to-market version of Leia that could take the basic Hoth Leia body, if you will, because once she puts back on her Hoth suit, she just sort of ditches the outer vest and the boots, and now you have Bespin Escape Leia. And every time we've gotten a Hoth Leia, we've more or less also gotten that equivalent of Bespin Escape. It's kind of like just when you have one, you might as well do both because you've got all that tooling. And the freeze frame version of Leia from Power of the Force 2, because again we know kids love slides, was easy fodder to generate a Bespin Escape Leia in Power of the Jedi, especially after Phantom Menace toys didn't sell as well in year 2, and the orders were to increase the number of Classic Trilogy figures in the line. So that Classic Trilogy and Episode 1 figures were about at a 50-50 ratio to ensure we had sales. So Bespin Escape Leia would, of course, appear later in the line as well in the Vintage Collection, because, again, once you have a Hoth Leia, and when we had a Vintage Collection Hoth Leia, a Bespin Escape Hoth Leia was going to be easy to do. So it, kind of repeats itself as the line goes. We even got a Black Series version of this, which, again, was more or less a kit bash of the Black Series Hoth Leia. Change the boots, change the hair, change the vest, and bam. With one completed body, suddenly you had 2. And the need to now combine Episode 1 and Classic Trilogy into one cohesive line. Alright, next up in Power of the Jedi Classic Trilogy releases was another Chewbacca. Well, Chewbacca's extremely popular, especially with kids, so keeping him on shelf all the time is a priority if you're running a Star Wars line. But the thing about Chewbacca is, unlike other characters like Leia who changes her outfit, or Luke, Han, etc., he looks more or less the same in all of his appearances. I mean, sure, his hair changes a little bit. So doing different Chewbaccas basically means giving him different accessories or different things to hold. It's really one of the only ways to refresh him. I mean, throw on some white speckle paint and suddenly now you have Hoth Chewbacca on an existing tool. Hey, why not? It gets done a lot because it's easy. I mean, I guess you could do behind the scenes Chewbacca, but that's kind of creepy. I mean, I don't think they'll ever do anything like that. In the original line from Kenner, we only got one Chewbacca, which could have been updated with new accessories, but never was. And in the modern line from Hasbro, this is what we saw. Whether you added a chain, or you added aforementioned speckle white paint to turn Chewbacca into Hoth Chewbacca, anything to differentiate him was done. And with Power of the Jedi continuing along that line of releasing figures that were intended for Power of the Force 2, like this version of Chewbacca, which wasn't just scene-specific, but moment-specific. I mean, he basically holds this pose for 2 seconds, and we got a figure from that. Though Power of the Jedi continued with its strategy of releasing main characters in different ways by, as I said, giving Chewbacca different accessories. In this case, a welding torch and goggles. Now, this is also a moment-specific version where Chewbacca is working on the Millennium Falcon, and we can see visually he's doing that as he welds. What, you didn't know Chewbacca was a trained welder? Well, actually, almost everyone in Star Wars is a trained welder, and there's a major behind-the-scenes reason for that. So when Irvin Kushner, the director of Empire, had several scenes where people needed to repair things, be it the Falcon or also the Falcon, you almost always see them doing welding, and that's because it's a visual thing. Seeing someone turn a screwdriver isn't as visual, and movies are a visual medium, so that's why Chewbacca gets a giant welding torch and goggles, simply because on screen it could look good. This version of Chewbacca would get a few re-releases as the line went along because, hey, it was, again, a great way to differentiate him with new accessories and make him scene-specific. We got an update of him, and then sometimes the extra accessories would just be thrown in with Chewbacca to give him piece count and value on shelf. So, hey, for those of you who love welding and love Chewbacca, your two loves could finally come together with one figure from Power of the Jedi. Yay.